In this video, I will show you all 6 players that you need to succeed for the Sunday Night Football single game showdown captain mode on DraftKings tonight as the 14-point underdog Denver Broncos try their best not to get absolutely slaughtered by the current Super Bowl favorites of the Kansas City Chiefs. My name's Quick Pick Nick, and having simulated a couple 100,000 different lineup combinations, here are your locks and lotteries for tonight, December 6, 2020. If you're looking for a FanDuel version of this slate, check the link in the description below, and while you're there, subscribe for more lineups throughout the season, including coverage for the doubleheader tomorrow for Monday's pairing of games. To start off this lineup with our first locks, there are actually 2 players who I would consider essential for this slate. They look similar to yesterday's first 2 locks, but for good reason, as they are able to tear apart any defense, let alone the 4-7 Broncos, as they are Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. These 2 players are anomalies in the league, making plays that other duos in the league simply aren't able to make. It seems pretty obvious to me, at least, that these 2 are the clear-cut top-tier players in this slate, and the 2 picks that you likely won't be able to win without. They both average above 24 fantasy points per game, they both haven't fallen below 25 fantasy points in the past 4 weeks, and they both aren't too expensive such that they're impossible to work into this lineup. The real question is which one should be our MVP, and according to my model, we ought to take Hill in the multiplier spot. This determination was pretty close though, so it does seem like Mahomes is also a viable option in the MVP position, but taking into account the price multiplication factor on DraftKings, Hill is probably the better choice. Not only did Hill outscore Mahomes the last time the Chiefs played the Broncos back in week 7, but he is also coming fresh off of the highest scoring fantasy game by any player this season, scoring over 60 fantasy points with 13 receptions, 269 nice yards, and 3 touchdowns. In addition, I feel like I should loop back around to that statistic where I mentioned that neither Mahomes nor Hill has fallen below 25 fantasy points over the past 4 weeks. For a quarterback, that's one thing, a lot of quarterbacks do that in the league, but for a wide receiver to maintain such massive numbers throughout the entire month of November with high volume in every game, that's something special we don't see very often in the NFL, which is why I want to capitalize on Hill's blazing hot streak while Mahomes acts as a benefactor in our flex spot. Again, these 2 may be switched, but for the sake of saving money and the explosiveness from Hill, we'll be sticking with Hill getting the 1.5 times points and price on DraftKings. For the next lock, my model chose a Broncos player, likely a turning point for Denver if they want to have any chance in this contest tonight, Tim Patrick. Aside from last week's game against the Saints, when the Broncos were celebrating with their 1-for-9 quote-unquote quarterback as they were almost completely shut out, Patrick has been stepping into an expanded role for Denver, averaging 14.3 fantasy points per game and nearly 8 targets per game in weeks 9 through 11. With tonight's game looking like a blowout, in order to even have a chance at catching up, Drew Lock and the boys will likely become dependent on those long balls and big plays, which is Patrick's main role for the Broncos. For only $4,600 on DraftKings with his real quarterback back in the game, Patrick should be able to exceed his expected price point. For the 3 lotteries, my model selected Melvin Gordon, Le'Veon Bell, and Brandon McManus. Taking Hill at MVP alongside Mahomes at flex really does eat up a bunch of our budget, but with these 3 players, we seemingly won't have to take that big of a hit to our point total. With Gordon, the Chiefs' rush defense is relatively weaker than their pass defense, as Kansas City ranks in the bottom 10 in the league in rush yards allowed per game, compared to their status in the top half of the NFL with respect to pass yards allowed per game. The reason Gordon's a lottery is because if the game ends up with Locke needing to sling the ball, as I mentioned earlier with Patrick, Gordon might not get enough of an opportunity. But with many goal line chances and early game potential, Gordon should be able to still see some points. As for Bell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is currently questionable, meaning if Edwards-Helaire is at all limited, Bell will have a field day with the Broncos' 27th ranked rush defense in terms of rush yards allowed per game. If Edwards-Helaire is out completely, I'd upgrade Bell to a lock, and even consider putting him at the MVP position to make room for the rest of the cast to be big names, but as it stands now, Edwards-Helaire might be the bigger star of the show, which is why Bell is still a lottery. They should both find success against Denver though, so Bell is likely worth consideration here. The remainder of our cash tells us that we have to take Brandon McManus, and there really aren't any cheaper alternatives that I consider better than one of the most reliable kickers in the league, so sticking with McManus will likely add high single digits or maybe even double digits points to our total. That's what my model was able to come up with for the Sunday Night Football single game showdown captain mode on DraftKings tonight, December 6, 2020. This has been Quick Pick Nick, the intersection for sports, data analysis, and speed. Thanks for watching.